Hi, I'm Dan from South Coast Tactical. One of the most common questions I often get asked about my panels is how you mount targets onto the front of them. I thought I'd do a quick demonstration video, set a panel up and just show you a couple of options that you've got when mounting paper targets onto the front, some do's and don'ts. One cheap, easy option for mounting is magnets. You can simply pop a target up behind, use a couple of magnets on front and back to pin the paper target up inside the mesh. Your other option, and my preferred method, is tape. Simply roll up a bit of tape, you slap a bit of tape on the back, doubled up, and just pop it exactly where you want it on the panel. Press it down, good to go. If you're going to use this outside and you've got a bit of wind, things to consider like that, then what I do like to do is pop the replacement mesh sock over the top of the whole lot just to keep it pinned down. So bear in mind this is a spare replacement mesh, you don't have to use it all the time. I would only recommend doing this if you're using it outside. What that does is it traps the paper in between the two layers and essentially stops any kind of movement, so you won't get any issues if you are using it outside. If using it indoors, my personal recommendation is not bother with a spare sock, just use it single skin. That's how it was designed. It works more effectively because the pellet needs to penetrate obviously through that first layer of mesh. Sometimes with weaker powered riffs, you might struggle to get through 2 layers of the mesh and you get the odd bounce off. Outside, not too much of an issue, but internally, when you're using it indoors, I like to use a single skin. Or you can use hazard tape and stick the target straight on the front using the tape across the front. Looks cool as hell. I saw Names Nico and the guys at Stay Low Move Fast doing this at their event. I like the setup. I like the way it kind of works. It pins the target on. Now, another cool thing about rigging your targets this way and having them taped directly on the front is if you're in a situation where you're running with multiple shooters and you want to count scores, that sort of stuff, if it's competitive or you run in stages, having it set up on the front like this allows you to just stick a target straight over the top. So very little resetting, very little messing about. Got a new target straight over, you're good to go. So it's quite an effective way of setting your targets up if you've got multiple shooters. Now, during testing and the early days when I was developing this product, we used different things to hang targets on, really to just try and find what works best. As I mentioned earlier, magnets are quite effective if using outdoors. We have used things like this, little S-clips that you can get off of Amazon, very cheap. When you combine them with mini bulldog clips, for example, it's an effective way of hanging straight onto the front mesh. Just literally put it in and you can clip the targets directly on. The reason I don't like using hard fixings when putting targets on the mesh is obviously if you're going to be using this indoors, there's much more chance of a ricochet if you're hitting something like a magnet or a steel clip. Using tape, personally I think is the best option. It's cheap and cost effective. You run very little risk at all, if any, of having a ricochet. It's soft, so if you're going to hit this with a projectile, likelihood is it's probably going to penetrate the tape, go through as it's supposed to do, and obviously that's the safest way to do it. My issue is with using hard fixings indoors, you're just running that risk. It's just another thing in the mix. You're running that risk of a ricochet indoors, and after all, that's what these panels are designed for, is safe training in indoor confined spaces. So tape for me is the safest option when rigging targets onto the mesh. Besides paper and punching holes in targets, that's not for everyone. Some of us like to, particularly people like myself that shoot real steel, we like that audible ting when you're hitting steel. So this is a kit that I'm going to be releasing very, very soon. They are magnetic steel discs that attach with neodymium magnets on the back. You can throw them on the targets however you like, whatever kind of arrangement you like. You can use multiple panels, single panels. This is a really good option for using gas blowback rifles to replicate your real firearms. Now, I know what you're thinking. Use the steel plates indoors, probably not a good idea. I'm in my kitchen recording this at the moment, and I just wanted to show you perfectly safe to shoot steel indoors using my system. you'll notice what happens with steel is you don't get any ricochets, but the pellet will often fracture and smash, obviously, when you're shooting steel at this distance. Again, not an issue. All the debris is caught in the catch trough. No mess whatsoever indoors, which is fantastic to be able to shoot, you know, steel targets from undrills indoors.